So he goes to prison. I'm start Caramel Rock, and I put in a application to, there's like a youth Dragon's Den which is going on in Newham, and I have a conversation with my director at the time, because I then became a coach at the cheerleading and started coaching and teaching, and really developed even further my kind of leadership acumen. So yeah, get into Central St Martin's and start Caramel Rock the same year. So everything I was learning at Central St Martin's, I was absorbing everything and then bringing it back and teaching my local community. 19, 20, 21. And although I'm getting older in age, on the inside I'm carrying this 13-year-old traumatized girl, and it hasn't been dealt with, it hasn't been peeled and released, and being able to talk about the pain. And so I'm still very angry, and for many years I could be in a normal environment and all of a sudden just start crying, and it was because I hadn't dealt with the trauma. Moving forward in my teenage years and getting closer and closer to 17, 18, and so from the age of 12 and being in this relationship all the way up until this point, it was extremely exhausting, and I mean, it was extremely a lot of things, but that I think is the most dominant one that I felt, in addition to pain, physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. And then so this individual is an extremely violent person, and not just to myself, but the wider community. And so he then gets into an altercation and ends up going to prison for attempted murder. So this is the level of violence that this person is capable of. And so he ends up going into prison. I'm 18 at this point, and kind of approaching my 19th birthday. No, I'm 18 at this point. And so, yeah, he's taken away from me. I didn't have to do anything. He was, peradventure of his own actions, he was sent to prison. And so it was just this massive burden and this massive dark cloud that had been following me for my entire teenage years. So my entire teenage years is known, I only had teenage years with this individual, and it was abusive. And so for the first year of him being in prison, I remained in the relationship purely out of fear. I didn't know any relationship without him and being with him. So it was almost like having to reprogram myself and readjust to a world where I can actually breathe. Although, in addition, while he's inside, he has friends on the outside watching me, reminding me what I can and can't do. And then I just got to a point, you know what? He actually can't get me. He's actually in prison. So during that first year, I went into prison to visit him. And just that whole, being an 18-year-old girl, and traveling down to a prison by myself and visiting him, and going through the checks and then being checked and your bag being checked, and just that whole experience is, for me, it's not normal, and probably shouldn't have been going, but I was. And just visiting him on the inside, and then just for that first year, for that 12 months, I stayed purely out of fear. I didn't know how to be by myself. And then I just realized after, 4 months, 7 months, that actually he can't get me. I don't have to worry. My phone is not going to be ringing crazily if I'm not at this place, or he's not going to be looking for me. I'm not going to be kidnapped. I'm not going to be beat down. I'm free. And so for the first time, I could actually breathe and began to breathe. And it was at that age, I started Caramel Rock. And so just the juxtaposition of being in such an abusive relationship, finally breaking out of that relationship, and actually starting an organisation which has transformed not only my own life, but local people within my community. And so it really kind of goes to show that if somebody is put in the right environment, they can really achieve so much, or who is in your environment can really affect how much you can excel and how much you can achieve. So yeah, he's in prison and I'm free, and I start Caramel Rock. And in the same year I got into Central St Martin's, and yeah, it was just, I just went for life, and was running with life. And so yes, got into Central St Martin's. But before getting into Central St Martin's, I got into a foundation course at Camberwell, which is still within the University of the Arts London. So I went to Camberwell, did my foundation at Camberwell, and I loved it. It included, I think there were like 6 pathways you learn within the first few months before you get to choose towards the end as part of my foundation. So we did fine art, I did photography, we did textiles, we did like sculpture. I was just, you could try everything. And I loved just the experimentation, design development, and just really kind of finding my own personal creative flair and my own identity as an individual, because a lot of my identity was based around him. I completed my foundation, which I absolutely loved, so woohoo, Camberwell. Then got into Central St Martin's, did my first year at Central St Martin's, and I struggled. I struggled with, I've had no counselling, I've had no mental health, well-being, safeguarding, coaching of a professional level. So I would say we did get a lot of leadership development and support at the cheerleading organisation. That was a lot of what it was based around. But the cheerleading organisation are not qualified youth workers, they're not qualified so-called psychiatrists, they're not qualified to support women who've experienced domestic violence. So I had no real professional counselling, which I probably still do need. I think it's good for us all to have someone to talk to. So I had no professional help. So I'm really kind of coming into myself and then starting a BA, and it was a struggle because it's a degree. I'm living a lifestyle in Newham where it's heavily around moving drugs, being abused, being out on road. I don't like the word gang, but I guess it was a gang. And living that lifestyle and transitioning into doing a degree, you have to have a level of study commitment that I didn't meet and I couldn't do. And so it was a struggle. It was a struggle of, I had anger. I was angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at my community. I was angry at everybody. I was just angry. I did have anger problems. I would get quite rolled up easily. Why you do that to me? And I was very angry. And I think the abuse was a heavy contributor to just having an anger management problems. So it was a struggle. So I actually ended up getting kicked out of Central St Martin's. I've never said this before. So I get kicked out of Central St Martin's, and so I then move over to UEL. and I finally graduate from UEL. So I shift from CSM to UEL. This is exclusive, I've never said this. So yeah, CSM kicked me out. And what is so ironic is we had a brief around knife crime. When we got that brief to work on this project, it was so close to home to me because this was something that I was exposed to in Newham. So at CSM, we were given a brief. We had to do like a collection based around anti-knife crime. I was like, oh my days. I mean, because at this point, Central St Martin's is based in Tottenham Court Road. So even just getting out of Newham was like new territory for me. I'm like traveling, only just on the tube into central London. But as a young teenager, it's a massive step in my confidence, in my personal development. So I'm, going into uni. I'm in the best institution in the world, and yeah, it was difficult. And then, we have a number. We had the White Project, which I think is quite a prestigious project at Central St Martin's. It's been going for decades. And then we have this knife crime brief we're given. I'm like, yes, this is close to home. I want to get the top marks for this project. Like, this really resonates with me. This is something I've experienced. It didn't go well.
These bad dance make it hurt.